they can possibly still have nice, good old NMrUUG also, who's also in the GSL. So they're not doing too badly in this tournament. I know Total Biscuit's here, so he's probably giving them pep talks every single moment. But let's switch on over into the main screen. Spawning up here in the top corner of Metropolis, it is from Team MJ, BBoong.
And down here in the bottom left corner from Team Axiom, one of the newer teams, it is CranK as our red Protoss. And so I actually heard, Total Biscuit's been treating his players pretty nicely so far. And, I can't wait to see, some of the interviews that are coming out from the players in a couple months here, just to hear what they have to say about, being managed by, somebody like Total Biscuit. Yeah,
it's pretty cool because, I don't think they have any sponsors just yet, but they're sponsoring it pretty much by themselves, Total Biscuit and Jenna. It's pretty cool. They already have axes. They made axes, little inflatable axes. I don't know if you saw them. They had like a whole bunch of them made up, and they were having a fight between the two of them with axes. So that was pretty funny in the middle of the lobby. And that's one of those cool things about esports events, is that you get to see all these personalities and faces walking around. Huck, Hero. Sure. All your favorite people, Hopid popping around because, he's just one of those esports personalities that everybody loves to see. And he just pops up in every picture for some reason, too. But, seeing Total Biscuit and Jenna just going at it, hitting each other with axes was pretty funny. And they're really great guys. I mean, it seems like CranK and NMrUUG are in really good hands.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny you bring up the axes. I remember at NASL, I forget which season it was one of the first esports events I actually attended. They handed out some of those clappers similar to the axes where you could clash them together, and they misspelled ire.
Yes, ire was
a rough
misspelled.
weekend. It was a rough weekend. I was laughing for so long. Yeah.
But anyway, it looks like CranK is going to be going for Nexus first here on Metropolis. Pretty well done here because, you do have a very long rush distance. Very, very rarely do Zergling actually get to your base unless some sort of earlier pool was done. But the pool first was done here by BBoong, and he's going to be, just playing very nice, safe games between the two of them. And this is, long rush distance ZVP, so we're going to have a little bit of time before anything happens out. But, of course, that means more lasers, more fungal growth, more explosions later on as the series gets more intense.
I feel like as StarCraft grows, the more fungal growth we're going to see, unfortunately.
It's funny, we were commenting about this the other day, about how both Protoss and Zerg have F as one of their favorite keys, force fields and fungals.
And both two things that people dislike greatly or opinionated one way or another.
Yes, very much so. Very polarizing techniques coming out here from StarCraft 2.
So very, very normal build from CranK. I like this opening, though, where he puts his forge in his base. He's able to get a decent wall off. And I was kind of wondering, couldn't BBoong just get a couple of Zerglings out and run them across the map since there's not a full wall? But like you were talking about, the rush distance on this map is just so long.
And that allows BBoong to get a really nice early third base here. As we can see, he's already going for already. And that's going to be really nice for his econ. Trying to build up straight on into probably a late game army is probably more his strong point. And especially on a map like this where you have choke points, it's a little bit risky to go for anything before then, but we have seen Blink Stalker work incredibly well on this map, as well as a couple other strategies. So, of course, BBoong has to keep that scouting up and alive. He's got to make sure he gets a couple of good Overlord timings, go straight on into CranK's base, and make sure that CranK's not doing anything a little bit wonky.
That's a really, really good point to make. And right now, it looks like BBoong actually taking a start a little bit earlier than I expected. It was about the 4-minute mark that he actually dropped it down. So, cutting a couple of drones right there just to do so. Nothing too crazy coming out from him. And just a couple Zerglings to take map control. And just from here, he's just going to macro it up. Yeah, he even cut out the queen that was going to be at his main base. If you look at his main base, he doesn't have any injects on that main. And now he's finally starting to get that queen out there. But, of course, trying to get that third base up, very, very worth it at this point. Queen's pretty nice, but third base is even nicer. Yes, sir. And it looks like CranK actually putting a pylon on this edge over here. You think this is going to signify any sort of hidden tech, maybe a Stargate, or you think he's just kind of dropping this for... that could also be in case he needs to do a full wall off and get a couple of units out there later on. It's nice for getting scouts off and everything like that. Twilight Council going down here for CranK halfway done. We might actually start to see some Blink Stalkers. We have +1 already halfway done, not being chrono boosted though, so that's one thing to take note. I'm wondering if he's actually going to take a quick third here. I really like this style that was popular for a couple months now, where players go for a really quick blink and then take a third, and they use the blink very defensively. You're able to push out on your opponent, fight him exactly where you want to, and then blink out if you need to. Quite right, quite right. Now, we've seen
And that's what's really great about Blink. I'm sorry, I was just trapped in thought and look at that dark shrine going down. What's also really nice about Blink is that, you know, there's just so many ledges on this map that you can really take advantage of. And, you know, defensively or offensively, Blink is really nice.
It's a great point. And like you said, there is a dark shrine going on. 3 more gateways have been dropped, but he has no forward pylon. There are a couple probes running around the map. Actually, there's just the one. This is a Zealot running around the map. The probe is running down on the right side, but I think these Zerglings are going straight to the watch tower. And is actually PredatorPL going to see it? He does see the probe go by. And is he going to be a little bit suspicious of this? This is going to be very, very important.
Looks like he's just going to go straight for the probe. I mean, that pylon is actually pretty far away. Normally, pylons are a little bit... Yeah, that one's a little bit more forward. A little bit more ostentatious, I guess would be the word.
You and your business terms.
That's not a business term. It's a word that makes you sound incredibly...
Kevin Bacon-like?
Kevin Bacon-like.
Kevin Bacon-like.
I was going to say sophisticated.
There are 18 Zerglings in production right now, and right now he does have a layer almost done, so he's going to be able to have those overseers out, which is going to be very, very, very beneficial. And these are +1 Zealots with +2 a third of the way done, so these are very, very beefy. They do a ton of damage. It looks like he's trying to defend this the best he can, but I think once PredatorPL gets a full surround here, even though he doesn't have speed, he should be able to clean this up.
He is still killing a lot of Zerglings, though. There's blood everywhere on this third base. It's being christened, I guess, in Zergling blood, but here come those Dark Templar, and there is no detection here just yet. I haven't seen an Overseer anywhere near here. Actually, I don't even know if Lair has gone down just yet, but these Dark Templar are chewing apart everything here for BBoong. One of the Queens does go down. It looks like the third base is going to go down as well. Transfuse is going down, but it's not enough.
Wow, and it does get taken down. This pressure from CranK was very, very interesting. He kind of faked his opponent out saying, hey, I'm going with Zealots, I'm getting +1 very, very quickly, but just kidding, I have Dark Templars up my sleeve, and now he's going to return home, taking out the third. And now what does he follow this up with? Well, he's still getting upgrades, he's getting +2, 4 gates have been dropped as well.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the food supply count, though, he is down to 66 compared to 96 here. And a little bit more of a warp in, but the Zergling do not want to notice it. They are, I think, just barely out of range of that Xel'Naga tower.
And I feel like at this point, BBoong's like, well, I think you're taking a third behind this. I'm going to go do some aggression on you. And he's going to get down and be like, well, what are you doing then? If you're not going to take a third, you've got to tech one way or another. A robotic facility has been dropped, so we do have CranK's tech choice.
Yeah, what's interestingly enough is that Blink is just about to be done. +2 weapons is also finished up here, and we're seeing a lot more Stalkers being warped dead over here. This is going to be pretty much a Blink Stalker all in. I don't think he's got a third base anytime in his near future. He's not saving up any money at all. We have the Robo facility coming in here, and this might actually just be a little bit of Warp Prism play just to get a little bit more of a forward base. Archon's now coming in as well, so this is going to be really strong, but that Archon is getting surrounded, and oh no, he does go down.
Yeah, it's this really, really interesting build by CranK. I think he's practiced this a lot. I mean, he got +2 just in time for this pressure, and now he's got the Destructible Rocks down. He's up to like 6 or 7 gateways. More than likely, I'm guessing he's going to be Chrono Boosting back home. Yeah, he is. He's got so many gateways back home. He has just the perfect amount of resources. You look at his income right now, and he's going to go actually push down the ramp here. And is he going to be able to do it? Look at this choke point. He can blink back to the top. 2 more Stalkers are coming in as well.
Yeah, and at this point, that third base is nothing but a vulnerability here for CranK, for BBoong, but he needs that third base, definitely, but the Blink is not being used that much. There we go, a little bit of Blink Stalker play now coming in. Now the Zealot's coming in from the other side. A couple of Changelings do go in there, curiously enough, but as soon as he takes out that Overseer, if there's not another Overseer, he can start warping in DTs again. There's still, there's yet another Overseer.
Yep, and CranK's still sitting on 2 bases, not actually taking a third one on at the same time. So he's just sitting on the high ground here, warping in a couple extra Stalker. 30 Zerglings are in production. I feel like once these 30 Zerglings are done, I think BBoong can hold this.
I think so as well, unless we start to see a lot more Zealots. But of course, since this is a Blink Stalker play, I don't know. It's all going to depend on both of these players getting really good positioning. But CranK is starting to lose a little bit of that window. He's starting to deal with a lot more Zerg forces than he's warping in and Stalkers. So this is going to be a little bit of a delicate balance here for CranK. If he doesn't really win here, this is going to be putting him back quite a bit, as we said before. This is pretty much all in. There's no third base on the way. And here comes the beginning of that engagement. The Zergling now running in, but the Zealots, the Stalkers don't really get that many kills. I think they killed 1 or 2 of those Zergling. Yeah,
actually right now CranK has half the army supply of BBoong, so BBoong in a pretty good spot right now. He's bringing in another 30 Zerglings, pushing forward here. There are no force fields, so the Roaches are able to just march directly up this ramp. The Stalkers, he's actually getting a pretty good amount right now. He's up to 27. 30 is usually, you know, that critical mass number that people talk about. And so it looks like he's trying to push down the ramp. Once again, nice Blink micro, trying to save a couple of Stalkers there. But the longer this goes on, I mean, BBoong's getting closer and closer to supply capped.
Yeah, and this is such an all-in strategy. Normally, we see an engagement either way at one point or another, but here comes the Blink Stalkers blinking back, but the Roaches are just going right on in, playing them right into the face, getting into melee range, seeing the whites of their eyes. I don't know if stalkers do have eyes, but or if they're white, but the stalkers are being taken out, and it looks like CranK is being completely pushed back. No third base on the way. This actually might be GG if Pung pressures this enough.
Yeah, he's got an Immortal coming on back home, so that's definitely going to help him out a little bit as far as defensive pressure goes. But I mean, Pung's 40 supply from being capped. He's got a ton more Zerglings in production. He doesn't have any tech though. There's no infestation pit, no fourth base, or he's getting +1 just about halfway done.
Yeah, we do have +1 range weapons now. Is there +1 on those Zerglings? I did not catch that upgrade going through. And there's at least +1 carapace, so they do have a little bit more tank to them. But Pung's putting a little bit of pressure here onto CranK's front wall, but still no third base in sight for CranK.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to try to, though. He's trying to take down these rocks really quick. Of course, the Immortal doing a ton of damage with +2. And back home, Pung relying directly onto the going directly to the infestation pit. He's probably going to get a second evolution chamber to start speeding up upgrades just a little bit. And so he's going to go into infestors, more than likely take a fourth base once he has any sign that CranK's taking a fourth as well.
Yeah, and just look at how many overseers that Pung has out. He's making sure that there's definitely not going to be any more DTs coming out from that.
Yeah, exactly. And there are 3 changelings just sitting out in front of CranK's base just to make sure that he's not moving out. But a third Nexus has been taken, and look at this minimap, this blue stream just coming across the map from Pung. He's at 184 supply to 114 of CranK, and right now twice the army supply of CranK.
Yeah, exactly. And this is one of those things of, sometimes you can go for an all-in and hopefully you can come out of it. But at this point, CranK is a little bit in a bit of the thicket here. He's got 116 in food supply compared to the 183 right now for Pung. But Pung, moving forward and then moving back. Maybe he was trying to get CranK to pop out a little bit more of his army instead of trying to get that econ back up. Colossus Den on the way, 2 more warp gates and +3 weapons.
Yeah, this wall that's going to finish here for CranK in just a moment is definitely going to be beneficial. Of course, it's going to be able to weed through some of the units, maybe funnel them a bit. But I feel like if Pung wants to do something, he's got to make it happen as soon as possible, because of course CranK is going to get comfortable down here. He's going to have a decent wall up, and he's going to start teching to the appropriate units to deal with something like this. And Pung has a lot of his supply currently taken by roaches and Zerglings. 100 Zerglings and 32 roaches.
Yeah, that is way too much for Pung to start getting into a better late-game technology. But here comes so many Zergling moving around the map. I can't even comprehend how they have the coordination not to run into each other and deal damage to themselves. But here are the Roaches trying to focus down that third base. Possibly there's a little bit of Zealot action over there. The Zerglings still just running around in circles, not really engaging anywhere in point or place, and just weakening down everything. And that's exactly what Pung can do right now. It's just every little damage that he does is perfectly fine because he can resupply so quickly.
He can't lose this Nexus right now, though. That's going to be a huge floodgate once that Nexus does fall. And it looks like actually Pung moving on the top side here. No force fields have been used. There we go. Force fielding got a couple of the Zerglings. CranK at 132 supply to basically the 200 of Pung.
Yeah, and every single time that Pung realizes that he's not at 200, he just hits his hatcheries and just completely resupplies in a second.
Yeah, where are the infestors? Here they come.
Here
so I think
come.
Once the infestors move in, I think that's going to be a big problem for CranK, even more so than now. The Nexus is down to 49 HP. CranK moving out just a little bit, but here come those infestors to keep everything pinned down. The Roaches are going to push forward here and clean up the rest of the sentry. That Immortal in the back is still just going away. 11 kills, and it looks like actually CranK doing a pretty decent job of cleaning up this first force here. Are there any more fungal growths left? I don't think so. There's actually 1 left.
Oh man, and CranK has to crank something out pretty soon or he's going to be losing that third base. It's already down in the red. The rest of the forces coming in. The Colossus now finally coming out. Looks like he does have Thermal Lance and +3. And finally that third base does go down, so now CranK back in down to 2 bases. At this point in the game, at 20 minutes, you're going to start running out in your main mineral line. In fact, he actually already has. So he's down to just his natural for minerals and gas, and that's not looking too good for CranK.
Yeah, of course, Pung throwing away a massive army at this point, but he does have that 4th base up and running at this point. It is completely done. Already got the first larva inject completed. CranK's army's looking pretty decent as far as tech-wise because he already has 2 Colossi. He retained both of them. But I think Pung's just going to be able to outlast him with 4 base first 2.
Oh, most certainly indeed. And that's one of those problems with when you go all in and it doesn't really work out. CranK trying to make this work, and I don't really blame him so much. There is a lot on the line right now. This is the loser's bracket. Losing 2 games here means he's completely out of IPL 5, and nobody wants that to happen.
Yeah, not at all. Actually, I would love to see CranK go on just a little bit further if possible. Looks like Pung actually going up to a Hive, getting +2 and a Spire. So we're seeing that timing, as always, where they're aiming to shoot for the Greater Spire.
Now, there's a little bit of movement to just a little bit of the right of Pung's army. I don't know what that is. There is another pylon and an observer. Okay, I thought it was a Dark Templar for a second, and I got really excited because there's no detection around Pung's army, but he does have fungal growth.
You know, there is actually a Dark Templar coming in, heading over to the 4th base, but I don't think CranK's going to invest too much money in Dark Templar now, just because he wants to get some of the more Colossi out, maybe a couple extra upgrades. And if, you know, like we've talked about, he's only on 2 base, and there's actually a Spore Crawler here, so this is going to get completely denied. But he is going to be able to go up into the 5th base actually, and possibly force a cancellation here.
Yeah, and another of these Dark Templar run in. It looks like he might just go, straight to the natural or not. Oh wow, didn't even actually take out the rocks between his 3rd and natural, which is an interesting choice there by Pung. He's been so incredibly enveloped in trying to take out CranK at the 3rd base that he just doesn't even need to take out those rocks because there's no pressure.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to hide this one Dark Templar down here in the bottom, and not the same one with the one over at the 5th base of Pung. And a couple of changelings are running around on the map, but has the Overseer scouted. There's the fungal growth, going to completely pin this guy down, and this guy is going to go down.
And we also have more upgrades coming in here for Pung. He's got +3 weapons, his +3 range weapons now coming down, as well as a +2 carapace. He's got more and more Overseers just in case, and the Greater Spire's already been started. You
know, but here's the problem. CranK's building 2 Colossi at a time, and right now we're not seeing any Corruptors coming out from Pung, and I feel like if he does start building them, they're going to turn straight into Broodlords. So he may not actually have a decent Corruptor count that he's going to need to take out this number of Colossi that's going to be on the field.
Yeah, that's going to be one of those scary moments, but of course, I don't know if the Colossus will be able to deal with all of the Broodlords that I think Pung has in store for CranK. Right now, Pung's starting to store up a lot of minerals and gas. He's pretty much not building any more units, popping out more spine crawlers with his extra minerals, and he's just trying to get, just have a nice little lofty amount of food supply that he can devote completely to Broodlords.
Yep, and Pung just sitting back right now. CranK realizing this is going to go up to a 4th, but it looks like Pung is actually going to move across the map right now before he's actually going to be able to use the Greater Spire to any use. It looks like Adrenal Glands is on the way. Only 1/1 for his Zerglings. He does have +3 on the way for his ranged units.
Well, that's going to be really nice for those infested Terrans. Let's take a look over at CranK's forces. I don't know what his upgrades are currently. He does have charge, so he just have +3 weapons. So, yeah, I mean, the upgrades right now are going to be pretty much even in terms of that. We have Adrenal Glands on the way, and the Cracklings are just going to be incredibly scary. But with the proper amount of force fields and the proper amount of Colossus, those Zerglings aren't really too scary. And just running in there trying to take out a little bit of that 4th base, but not too successful. Now we have Archons on the map as well. 9
Broodlords have taken the field at this point. They are hovering somewhere around the middle of the map. He may actually move forward with them. Look at that Infestor count. That's what I'm scared of. 15 Infestors. Of course, the Templar Archives is done. No Storm, but do we have any High Templar on the field?
No. Doesn't look like we have any High Templar. I think he's just been turning those straight into Dark Archons, if not using DTs to turn those into Archons. Dark Archons. I'm sorry.
Man.
I got a little bit of Broodlord back in there.
I'm okay.
Man, I would love to have Maelstrom in this game.
But it looks like actually Pung's going to move forward here. Is he going to actually engage? No, it looks like he's going to go back over to the 4th, maybe throw down a couple of infested Terrans to force CranK to make a decision here. And yes, he's going to get in a really good spot with these Infestors. Look at this, separating out the 3rd and 4th base here of CranK. And now Crank's going to have to lose this 4th base very, very quickly. And now Adrenal Glands is done, and +3 weapons for the infested Terrans.
I'm really scared. Yeah, I'm really scared about those infested Terrans having the +3 weapons because they do so much damage. But Pung not paying attention to his Infestors and actually losing so many of them. And CranK actually just got thrown back into this game. If he can take out all of these Broodlords, they are so far away from home. If he gets a really good engagement right now, actually this is going to be really bad for Pung. CranK actually could possibly come back here. He's doing a lot of damage to this Broodlord. There's only 4 left. Now, granted, Pung does have a pretty much good bank, and he's got 14 more Corruptors on the way, but with the ground army of CranK doing so much damage and taking that out so well, this is actually... that was... Ooh.
I wish I could see Pung's face during that engagement. That's got to hurt so bad. I mean...
that is a facepalm right there.
Absolutely. I mean, CranK did not have the appropriate amount of Stalkers he needed to deal with that force, but with the amount of Colossi that were just eating those Broodlings up instantly, that's what made the difference, especially without, the fungal growth after fungal growth after fungal growth.
Yeah, exactly. And all those Zergling were taking out so quick. It was such a colossal loss there.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. 6 more Broodlords are in production, plus 3 armor and plus 2 weapons is on the way for ground units of Pung, and it looks like Crank's going to push forward here. There's a pretty decent wall of Bicallers in here, actually warping it on the low ground. Surprised he's not trying to distract his army a little bit by warping it into the main. And army suppliers are showing in favor of Crank. He doesn't have too much anti-air, but 7 Broodlords are about to take the field.
Yeah, where are those 7 Broodlords is my question. I think they're over there, yeah, at the other end. So he's going to be losing a lot before those Broodlords dozy their way all the way over to the main base. And that's what's really going to allow Crank to do a lot of damage here to the infrastructure of Pung. Now he's moving those Colossus over, and if they get caught by those Broodlords, he's going to be losing so much of the damage of his army. But it doesn't really matter at this point. Pung losing so much here.
12 Broodlords are going to be on the field in just a moment here, and I feel like Crank should clean up the rest of his tech, clean up the rest of the bases. It looks like actually there was a huge run by with Zergas that cleaned up the 3rd.
Oh, yes, look at that. So this is pretty much all on the line here for both of these players. 120 to 149 in the food supply count. Pung a little bit ahead by 29 food right now. But is Crank going to be able to make this engagement work out? There's so many sparring crawlers. I don't know if he should be moving on in here. I think he should be able to take out the rest of the infrastructure before he does this. He might be losing so much of his army, but he doesn't really have that much else to do. And so much of his anti-air is taken out. Crank throws down the GG. Pung takes game number 1. Wow, guys.
That opening from Crank, I'm going to watch the replay at home. That was so cool. That really quick Zealot kind of stalker pressure with +1 into Dark Templar into Blink +2, though it didn't work out for